Hello traders and welcome to the weekly outlook and setups volume 148. Iliya here, and as always I'm really glad to have you on the channel. And in this one we're gonna have a monthly analysis because we had a monthly candle closure last week. We already are 1 week into the month. We had NFP, we had interest rate decisions, statements, press conferences, speeches, NFP as well. So we had a lot of news going on fundamentally right now, so we got a lot to talk about. So make sure that you stick through all the pairs because I'm going to be mentioning like different fundamental parts, like for the euro, for the dollar, for the Aussie, for the pound as well, for gold. So make sure that you just watch because I think there could be a lot to extract from this video. Of course, I'm not really good with fundamentals as well, but I really believe one should study more regarding those things because essentially, fundamentally, those markets are driven by those things, right? The stock market is driven by how the economy is doing, how companies are doing, which is pretty much like fundamental analysis, right? While currencies are driven by interest rate differentials, right? Monetary policy as well, and how the country is doing, right? So pretty important to actually understand the fundamental driver of the currencies, which is what we're trading and analyzing mainly on this channel, right? So we have a lot to speak about, but before that, it is the first video of the month actually, so I have to pick a giveaway winner. You know, my initiative to pick one lucky winner that is going to get access to the TFDW bundle, which consists of 2 courses, community access, and also one-on-one sessions with me. And for this one, this is going to be Mr. Barry Financials, who has been here for a very long time, commenting on every single video. He has the hard batch, and he also came up with the amazing initiative of Flow with the Market Tuesdays, which I'm really grateful about. So congratulations, Barry. I look forward to hearing from you and having you in the Fanatic team. Hope you're going to be an amazing addition to the team. All right. And of course, if you are new to this channel, make sure that you're subscribed and turn on the notifications because I'm about to post some more content in the upcoming month as well. But mainly also focused on trading right now because we have some very interesting stuff happening. So without further ado, let's actually head into the video and see what's going to happen this month. Alright, before we get started with the Dixie, first of all, shout out to an amazing broker that is Forex.com. They have all the currencies, all the cryptos. They also have stocks, so you have plenty of instruments to trade on that platform. Their spreads are amazing, and they have 2 kinds of accounts. One is a no commission, but the other one is called the Eco account, which I personally picked because you pay a little commission, but every single lot that you trade goes towards planting 10 trees. So I really think this is an amazing initiative, and they're actually following up on their process of planting trees and their support that they give to the environment on their website. So make sure to check them out. Link is down in the description. All right. So if you did that, let's actually have a look at the dollar. Right. So we are currently on the monthly time frame, and of course the last candle, the last monthly candle is just a pure massive bullish engulfing candle with just a very little wick on top, which of course is not a big deal. And of course the first objective, the first liquidity objective was this high, which is around 104, right? And we actually precisely tapped 104, and we're currently kind of, yeah, let me actually draw this correctly. We're currently kind of a little bit consolidating around this area. And of course, if we just drop kind of the top down analysis, we had this area of demand right there that shifted the structure right here. So this was a lower low, lower high, lower low. We broke up right there, right? Then we went in to retest the high. We can see this was a very long time ago, March 2020. We tried to push to the downside, but it was very nice that we actually failed to break below this low, right? We held right there, we shifted the structure higher, and then since then we have been bullish because if this high failed to take out this low, right? So this was not a lower high, right? Then it becomes actually liquidity, and we can see those 2 liquidity targets right there have been perfectly fulfilled, right? So what usually happens afterwards is we are going to have a pullback, all right? So the biggest question right now for the dollar is, are we going to have any repricing lower? Are we going to have a pullback, right? That we can actually take some shorts and potentially longs on the euro. We have been extremely bullish since actually 2014, massive run into the highs. Then we enter into this consolidation period, a little bit of a pullback, which I'm pretty sure just went into tap 50%. You can see 50% right there. And right now we are potentially heading higher, right? So this is pretty much the monthly time frame, right? I am very bullish on the dollar, and of course right now the fundamentals are just shouting long me, right? Interest rates have been increased once again. NFP was positive. New jobs were created this month. Our unemployment rate, I think, was a little bit higher by 0.10%, which is not too much of a big deal because, again, new jobs were created. They are hiking their rates by 50 basis points, which hasn't been done since, I think, since 20 years, right? It's the first time that they actually hike the rate so much. And this is really starting to shake the market right now. And personally, I thought these rumors, because we had the situation of buy the rumors and sell the news, right? Even before they actually hiked the rate, which actually happened this week, right? We saw this massive expansion to the upside. So I was thinking, okay, people are right now buying the rumor that the Fed are gonna raise the rates. So let's actually see what's gonna happen when they raise them. And I was actually expecting a little bit of selling pressure, right, to come in, but no, we close another bullish week, right? So currently we're trading within this range. We can of course start dropping the 50%, but the big question is, are we gonna have this 50%? Are we gonna have any pullback, right? I personally see right there a potential retest area that is gonna be cleaner on the daily time frame. But again, weekly time frame met the objective, so I would love to have a pullback. But once again, guys, as long as we're long, we keep longing. Don't start expecting big pullbacks because we might not have them. So again, around the 50%, this could be potentially the last pullback area. This is the last clear high low before this massive run into the highs that has like, how much? Yeah, 7 consecutive daily candles. So pretty much a week of push. We had then a little pullback. And if we take this range, this was not 50%. So I was expecting a deeper pullback. And right now we actually went in to take again a new high. Right, so I see it's taking liquidity on the weekly and on the monthly. It's right now taking it on the daily. So I have some sort of reservations that we might initiate a little bit of a pullback, but this is what we have to see right now, right, this week. So framing all of this, the dollar is very bullish, right? But if we actually have a look on technicals, well, the market might need to reprice a little bit. So there is the rate right there. So what we had is, as I expected, a little bit of a drop to the downside, but as you can see, the next day, boom, back up again. Where to? The high, right? So we took out the high, then we took it again on Friday, right? And right now we have a little bit of a shift of structure in the full hourly. So I'm very interested to see what is going to happen right now, because we have this little sign of a potential shift, a potential liquidity grab. I really love those formations when you have this sharp reaction, right? So this usually is a liquidity grab formation. I call it the bullish bearish formation, when you have a very strong bullish candle and then the next candle is either an engulfing candle or just a candle in the opposite direction that is closing either as an inside bar, or much better, an engulfing candle, what we have right now, right? So what I want to see right now is if this one is going to create a lower high just right here. And again, I do not want to call any shorts on this one yet until we really see a clear sign of rejection and a clear downtrend created. Because again, if we just look at the trend right now, we have a push, pullback, high, lower low. So I want to see this confirmed by creating a new lower low and then to see if the next one is going to hold, right? Because essentially a trend does not change from this, which is what we have right now. Most of the times this can be just a liquidity grab for the market to continue higher, right? So what I need to see is the market to pull back, to hold from this level, to create a lower high. When is the lower high confirmed? After we have a new lower low created, right? So this is what I'm currently looking for: a new lower low, pullback, lower high, and then to potentially sell, right? Sell the market if we really expect that pullback. But again, 104 was tapped, weekly liquidity was met. We have a couple of liquidity grabs right there. We have a very nice rejection formation right there. So I get the feeling we might get a pullback. But again, what is the other scenario? Well, the other scenario is that we pull back right there, we create a bullish shift, and we continue trading into the highs, or we just rocket from here, from which we have to, we just have to continue following the trend. Okay. So those are my outcomes on the DXY technically. Right, I do expect a pullback. I would love to see a pullback. According to me, this was not enough. And again, I do think we can continue higher. Again, the next objective, I think on the monthly, on the monthly, we have this little range right there, which we're pretty much right now trading into. We can go and retest those wicks, right? So we have a little bit more of room to the upside, potentially 105, 106, to potentially retest that level to really create a clear high. Because right now we are just taking out this high, right? And it's still with wicks, right? So the question is, are we really going to create a nice higher high and then to initiate a pullback, right? Maybe then something's going to happen in the world that is going to initiate a pullback on the dollar, because technically it's going to need to reprice. Maybe institutions are going to need to take some profit as well, right? Or are we going to initiate the pullback from here? That is the big question. So again, as always, you know, the message on this channel is don't marry to a bias. Be open-minded to both sides and just flow with the market. All right, so stay tuned for my Tuesday video, Flow with the Markets Tuesday, where we're gonna have a look at how Monday opened, how the market developed, and what we can potentially expect. But I do think we can have a shorter term short into the lows, and then of course, if this low is taken, we can start confirming more of a hard time frame shorts when we can start looking to see the dollar back to 101. I saw a couple of fundamental analysts saying that we have 101 to 100 pullback on the dollar, which is also what I would expect. So hopefully this one is gonna happen, right? So that's the Dixie, guys, for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really excited for your view as well. Let's have a look on the euro, right? So starting with the fundamentals, the ECB is a little bit lagging behind. So they announced that they are thinking of increasing the rate in July, right? So they're currently just staying on the sidelines, waiting to see how the economy is doing, and the euro is just plummeting because of that. Why? Simply because we have a big differentiation right now between the rates of the euro and the rates of the dollar, right? So I pretty much think bearish euro, right? And also by the time that the euro increases their rates in July, probably the Fed are going to increase their rates by another 50 basis points. So again, the euro is just dead, right? But again, the big question is right now, technically, fundamentally, absolutely bearish euro, right? And even the technicals are supporting that. So again, similarly to the Dixie, we had a little bit of a bearish shift right there coming from this massive bearish pressure. We had a beautiful around 50% pullback right there. So pretty much right now, if we take this whole range, which could be kind of a quarterly range, the target is down there, right? 103.50 is my overall target, which is the next potential objective. The first one was this one, which was actually met, I think, last week. We see the monthly candle very beautifully closing below. And right now the question is, can we react from something that is within those zones, or are we just gonna plummet to the downside? And of course, are we gonna get a little bit of a pullback to the upside first? We have a massive bearish engulfing candle, so are we gonna start with a little bit of a wick to the upside? We can see that a wick was already created, so I do think this market can just continue plummeting to the downside until we reach this objective, right? Unlike the DXY, which tapped this guy and also tapped this guy right there, which was kind of the major low on EU. Again, EU hasn't really taken the major low. So there is some sort of a lot of divergence is happening right now between the Dixie and Euro, which is quite tricky. But of course, if you understand it, could be some nice trading opportunities. But pretty much right now, the Euro is bearish since we tapped inside this supply right there. We had a higher high, higher low, failure to make a new higher high, and then we just plummeted from there. Objective 1 met, objective 2 is about to be taken out. So I'm absolutely bearish. The question is, how do we get in, right? Massive bearish week, the previous one. I was very sad to not have taken any shorts. This week I had a profitable week on Euro. I had a loss on Monday. I had a nice win on Tuesday. Wednesday I did not trade. The Wednesday and Thursday I did not trade because pretty much we had a very huge week, and the Huawei was overall consolidative, so I was quite skeptical, and I took a lower risk loss on Friday as well. So overall profitable, but again, not one of the best weeks. And we can pretty much see that the weekly time frame closed with a big wick. So we have a lot of indecision. It's also an inside bar. So again, what do I tell you about inside bars is that they, of course, have their mother candle, and we can expect one of the highs or lows to be taken. Personally, framing this with the bearish bias, I do think the low is gonna go, right? And I really like this pullback. It has pulled back roughly around 50% of the body of the candle, right? And if we take the whole candle like this the previous week, we had an absolutely textbook tap of 50%, right, of the previous weekly candle. So I do think enough liquidity could be grabbed to the upside by this little pullback, so that we can actually flush to the downside. Very hard to read this week Euro. So we started with a little bit of chop. We had a very nice bullish day right there. Then we immediately had a pullback, and then on Friday we just kind of ranged again. A little bit hard to read, right? And if I just drop to the Fibonacci right now, oh man, this is giving me a little bit of pain because it's very hard to read. But of course, intraday, I promise you, there are a lot of opportunities to take. So the level that we responded is this guy, right there, which is not into 50%. I really expect for us to revisit those higher levels, but again, I do not exclude the possibility that we're just gonna flush from there. Why? Because we had this massive run into the highs again to trick people into buying, and then we immediately sold off, right? We created the weekly high around 106.50 almost, and then we actually broke the higher low, which is this guy that created this higher high, right? So we immediately actually shifted lower. Then what did we do on Friday? We pulled back towards this lower high, we rejected, and right now we might already be heading lower, right? I also don't like this wick because this wick also grabbed a lot of lows right there, but what is it doing right now? It's just building ranges, constantly taking out the highs, taking out the lows. We had lots of ranges right there, took out the highs, took out the lows, then right now took out the lows again, right now took out the highs again, right? So it's just kind of creating liquidity grabs, which makes it a little bit tough to trade, all right? So just looking at this market, again, if you want to be extremely objective, what are we doing? Well, we are overall ranging, right? But then of course we can always look between the sidelines. What is the market doing right now? It's going down, right? Where is the last higher low? It was right there. We got it broken, right? So where is the last major high? It's this one. Where is the potential low? This one. So I am overall expecting shorts on euro, supporting everything that is also happening fundamentally. So we had a nice tap right there yesterday. We actually provided a very nice short that I missed. There was a nice short to be taken right there, but we consolidated a little bit, and right now we started to carry on to the downside. So what I'm going to be looking for is for a potential high, something to be created like this, lower high formation, and then to potentially see drop lower. If we continue trading lower, then I would love to follow the momentum, right? As for the long scenario, I just don't see a long scenario right now, right? I just don't see it. If I drop to the hourly, yeah, this is a liquidity grab, this is a push, so then you can start dropping levels like this. But then if you ask what is my overall narrative, it's bearish, right? So longing from here, not very good, right? But of course, let's be open because we can have some sort of long opportunities from there. But pairing this with the dollar, is the dollar gonna flush from here, right? If it starts flushing, then this means longs for euro, and currently we're looking for shorts on the euro, but we can see that the price between those two is absolutely different, right? Right here we have a liquidity grab and a very nice bearish push. Right here we have this big wick and kind of choppiness, right? So it's not very one-to-one, right? So again, guys, give it some time. I am 50-50 on this one. I'm looking more for shorts supporting the downside, but if I, for example, yes, have a retest right there, and then as I told you, have a confirmed higher high, then potentially a pullback for a higher low, then of course I'm gonna be longing. I change my bias every single day this week's, and which is what I don't like, but we have to do this. Okay, so that is Euro USD. Let me also know your thoughts. It's a little bit hard to analyze, so I'm gonna give it some time on Monday, see how it opens, potentially then just try to flow with the markets. Let's look at Euro Yen, which has turned into a little bit of a tricky pair, but overall we had a massive run right there the month of March, the month of April, continuing into the highs. But I also want you to have a look at the wicks that are left on top. So rejection from the top, and then the next month actually closed with a rejection that even looks bigger than the body, right? Which suggests that we have more rejection rather than bullish pressure, right? So we took out the first objective, which is this one, and right now we're kind of trying to revisit some of these wicks right there, which we're currently staying right now. So the question is, are we gonna hedge to actually take one of those out, which is 141, right? Or are we first gonna initiate a pullback, right? So what I can see right now is that the monthly candle opened and it's starting to fill in the wick. And what do I tell you about wicks? They tend to get filled around 25 to 50%, and we already have the 25, right? Do I have a 25 right there? Yeah, 25 has already been filled and we are having a rejection from it, right? Which is pretty good because we can start expecting a little bit of a downside. But again, this depends on UJ as well. So this is a JPY pair and we know what UJ is doing right now. So we have, I think I spoke about this one last week. We have this kind of a rally base with 1 week that we have an inside bar. This one was also an inside bar, and then we actually expanded into the highs, creating a new higher high. Next week we pull back, we massively rejected from here, and then this week we pretty much did not do much, right? We just consolidated, also another inside bar, which is good. If we frame the overall direction in this one, well, it is bullish. So what is the chance? What is a hard chance for the next weekly candle to form? I do think bullish, right? Also because we have this inside bar, and if I ask, well, what has a higher chance of actually being taken out? Well, it's the high, right? So what I would expect is to open, to maybe have a little bit of a pullback to the downside, and then to initiate higher, take out the high, and then we might even actually head for 140. All right. So I am overall bullish on Euro Yen, but then again on the daily, we can see what we had this week. So it's building up for something. I have not checked the economic calendar for next week because we might have something for the JPY that is actually gonna shake things up right there. Because you can see since pretty much this week, since the 2nd of May, indecision, and another one, right? So something is telling us that something is going on right there, and pretty much there is no sense to analyze the 4-hourly time frame because it doesn't make too much sense right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at both sides again. So we have this potential supply, which is also the inside bar high. No, this is the mother candle's high, which we expect to break, right? From the downside, we revisited weekly demand, and we have this massive run into the highs that first of all broke this kind of lower high, which is a pretty major lower high. We had a pullback, lower low, boom, massive push. But even if we don't consider this one as the major, this one is definitely a good one, right? So we broke 2 lower highs with this bullish push, and right now we're just building up potential liquidity, right? So we can also mark this guy right there, and what we can do is to frame a long bias. We can drop just a simple fib, and we can see that 50% has not been tapped, right? Well, we may be tapped it by this candle right there. I'm not really sure. But what I told you in the week is that I'm going to expect probably a little bit of a pullback to the downside. I would love to see the weekly low taken, and then from there, I would love to see some bullish shift, right? It depends also on UJ as well. But monthly is, oops, I hit my mic. Monthly is bullish, weekly is bullish, daily is kind of, 50-50 because we also have this very sharp move to the downside, but you can see how nicely it held. So I would suggest that we look for longs on this one. But first of all, I would expect these flat lows to be taken by maybe a nice bearish candle to trick in a lot of sellers, and then potentially we can start expecting the upside, all right? So that is UJ. Currently, if you're looking to trade within this zone, I would say no, because it's not the best positioning to trade. There is nothing to trade from, right? There is no demand, there is no structure, there is nothing right now. Yes, you can go on the hourly and force it, but I don't think it's good to do so. If we first start revisiting the highs, then might expect a pullback, but then overall, as the bias is bullish, we might expect continuations higher, right? So this is EJ. I don't too much see the shorts. Let me know if you do. Shorts can definitely come in from right here because we also have a nice shift happening right there. We have a higher high, higher low, higher high, shift, pullback, lower high, right? So right now we can revisit and we can of course start going lower. But currently I am looking at the market as bullish. So let's see if this bias is going to work out. Let's look at the Aussies starting from AU. So pretty much Royal Bank of Australia also raised their rates by 25 basis points, I think in March. So their current rate is at 0.35, I believe. Again, the differentiation between 1% for the Fed and 0.35 for the Aussie suggests that Aussie dollar should be bearish overall. And we have this pretty much printed out last month, right? In April, we had a massive bearish engulfing candle, right? With a very nice wick on top. Potentially taking out these flat highs right there and tapping into this overall high right there. So I do think we are pretty much bearish on Aussie dollar as we are on euro and as we are probably gonna be on the pound as well. Yeah, the pound is just flushing, right? Pretty much this is gonna be the first objective, which is close to 0.70, but more like 0.6950, right? What we had this month and this week already is a very nice pullback that pretty much went in almost, I believe, 50%. Yeah, almost. And if we take the overall body of the candle, we almost have 50% of the body, right? So we can say that a pullback already went through. So we can, of course, start expecting shorts on this pair, which I think it's pretty possible. So again, we had on the weekly, we had this overall demand, but we can just see that the demand crushed, it crushed in again. Then we responded from something that was probably right in here on the daily, because this one right there is a pretty strong level, right? Why? Because we had taken out this monthly or weekly low, right, in January, and then since then we very nicely initiated higher, right? So there were a lot of buy orders coming in, which is why we had probably this big bullish reaction this week, right? So the question is, like this candle right there is pretty tricky. It's a huge wick. It's a huge rejection candle, right? But pretty much I would expect bearishness. So what we can expect is the market to open, to fill in the wick around 25 to 50%, and then to potentially close bearish and maybe even attack the target lower, right? Because again, fundamentally and also technically, we are pretty bearish on the Aussie. And again, a lot of us might have expected to have a revisit of this zone right there, which again is a little bit realistic because this is almost 100% pullback, right? And strong markets do not pull back to like 61.8 or 78.6, right? If I drop to the pip, this even pulled back to 50%, which is quite a lot, right? So having the pullback of 78.6, this is the extreme, right? This usually signifies that the market is more stronger than it's weaker, right? Perfect 50% pullback, massive bullish engulf, massive bearish engulf. What did I tell you about these patterns, right? The bullish bearish formation, right? Massive bullish, massive bearish, also taking out the low. So I pretty much think the first objective for the Aussie is going to be this low. And if this low gets taken, then we potentially go below right there. And as I told you, we are currently reacting from this zone. This is why we had this beautiful reaction higher. But as we have taken out the money and the orders from there, I do think we right now have a clear sign to potentially continue to the downside, right? So it was a little bit tricky right there because we had this massive run into the highs and then we just immediately initiated lower. And if we also try to find out the last kind of higher low, wherever we take it, it was broken right there because we had a push, pull back with this bearish candle, and then we initiated higher. So this overall range is broken. We had a reaction, but then it was broken, right? So the tricky part about AU right now is where are we going to take a short from, right? And of course, we can just open and we can just crush the low, right? Which is going to be tricky because then we don't get an opportunity to get in. So in order to determine a zone on this one, we might have to use a lower time frame. I'm not sure if you're going to pull back into any of those upper zones right there. So if I try to go to the hourly, well, the last 2 days, we have an overall range, which is, man, this is tricky right now to analyze. We had this very sharp wick as a liquidity grab. And then right there, we're just chopping around. And on the 15-minute, we just have a range, right? So personally, guys, I am not going to force it, right? I am not going to force like a lower time frame entry. And as I told you on the weekly time frame, I would expect for the market to give me a little bit of a pullback, right? At least 25%, which is going to be there. And if I go to the hourly, yeah, we can see that the 25 is roughly right there. So if the market starts bullish, right, to the upside, then I'm going to be probably letting Monday play out. See if we're going to start bullish, then potentially on the next day, if the 15-minute shifts bearish, and then potentially I'm going to start attacking the lows, right? So this week on the euro, on the DXY, on JPY, all the pairs that we covered up until now, there is no immediate opportunity, right? We all have to wait up a little bit because after NFP, we usually have like a big wick and some sort of consolidation. So letting Monday play out is essential. But pretty much, I am bearish on the Aussie. I do think this one is going down. So the question is, how do we get in? So let's wait for Monday to play out. Wait for some new levels to form, some new structure to form. And then, of course, we're going to adapt. And if we just crush and close below, well, cool. We just wait for a lower high and then we attack the next target, right? So this is AU and I think AJ might be tricky. So yeah, we're throwing in a lot of wicks on this one right now. It's starting to run out of power to the upside and it's also revisiting pretty important levels right there on the left. So can we have a pullback on this guy? We had a very nice rejection. We had a very nice bearish engulfing candle. This week actually went in all the way up, took out the weekly high and filled in around a little bit above of this wick, right? So I'm also starting to see some sellers coming in on this one. We had this very nice run into the highs, a massive bearishness to the downside, breaking the last higher low, breaking this higher low, and even this one, right? So this is either just a pure liquidity grab to continue higher, or it's really signifying rejection, right? And a potential reversal. So we came in almost towards the lower high. This is actually a pretty big pullback. We can see that it's probably around the 78, normal pip. Yeah, 61.8 beautifully tapped, around 61.8 and 705, which is pretty much the golden pocket. We have it, and we are rejecting right now very nicely to the downside. So let's see if we can frame some shorts. I do think it looks good. This high, I did not like. I was pretty sure that this one is going to get taken. I think I was looking at this one a while ago, and we probably called longs from right there. I don't remember because I'm not engaged, especially with this pair. But we went in to take out this high, which is pretty much very nice liquidity. And right now we are starting to shift to the downside. Okay, so like AU, I would love to have, first of all, a little bit of a pullback to the upside. to create some sort of a lower high, which we already have forming right now. But again, if I drop to the hourly, it's like, man, I just don't know where to enter from, right? So I would love for the week to start a little bit bullish, preferably even take out these highs, come into the highs right there, then start shift bearish, and then I'm gonna short this one. Of course, if we start bearish, then we just have to follow the flow, right? Keep in mind that this one is looking a little bit more bullish. Why? Because it's a JPY pair, right? So we have this overall daily push that created a higher high. So technically right now, this is a daily higher low, right? But again, weekly, monthly, meeting the objectives on the left, having this bearish pressure to the downside, I do think we can get in some shorts as well. So let's see how it's going to play out. Currently, there is no setup, so I'm going to be waiting for more. Maybe we tap inside, maybe then we pull back lower high, then that could be also a nice setup. So stay tuned for Tuesday. Let's have a look at the NZDs. So pretty much starting with interest rates, I'm not pretty sure about the NZDs, but I do think they also hiked their rates and they're currently at even above 1%, right? 1.5 or 1.25. So this one should actually be more bullish while we have complete bearishness on this one, right? So pretty funny pair right there. I'm not trading the NZDs, but again, massive selling pressure. Already the monthly candle is printing bearish, right? So pretty good. And I do think we are probably headed towards this zone, which we're gonna react, which is around 62 to 63. This whole region right there is potentially where we are currently going through, but an absolutely bearish pair, right? We can see that we had on Aussie, this level was a little bit higher, and this one actually broke. Massive bearish, and it's like parabolic to the downside, which is very nice to see. This week started with creating a beautiful pullback, right? This one is a much bigger pullback than the other ones. We can see that it actually tapped almost 61.8, and right now we have already met the objective of 0.27, right? Which is pretty good, pretty textbook actually. But yeah, we have the same delivery as we had on the Aussie. We had a very nice bullish engulfing candle right there to create this weekly high, and then we immediately continued to the downside and already made the new lower low. And if you remember with the Aussie, we are just traveling towards making this lower low. So the Aussie is a little bit stronger than the NZD. I don't know why, but pretty much being more quick with this one, we had this high being created, taking out the previous weekly high. No, this is wrong. I think it did not take it. Yeah, it just actually pulled back towards this high to take up some liquidity. And then we just massively initiated lower, taking out this beautiful weak lows, right? And flat. So what can we expect next? Well, currently, as I said, the majority of the pairs, again, they do not have an immediate setup. So we have to wait. What we have to wait for is to see whether we initiate a pullback to create a lower high, or whether we just straight through flush to the downside, so then we have to wait for a new lower high and to get in, right? As simple as that. Why? Well, because right now we just have a range, and you don't want to trade when you have price action like this, which is what we have on the majority of the pairs, right? So we just took out liquidity to the downside, so right now we might start seeking a little bit higher. So let's see how this one is going to play out, right? So pretty much this is my outlook. This pair is an absolute beast to the downside, so I'm overall bearish, but again, I currently just do not see a proper entry. All right, so let's see if it's gonna initiate a pullback first, then go lower, or if it's gonna break structure right now, right there. Then we'll wait for the pullback, and of course, then again, continue lower. So that's it, as simple as that. And this one is actually looking even messier. This one should start probably also pumping to the downside, because looking at how the NZD is overall weak, this one is still kind of slacking a little bit. It took out all of these highs, and it's currently retesting some of these regions right there around almost 88. Yeah, we almost retested 87.50, which is kind of a round number. But we already have two massive rejections from the top, and the monthly candle is already printing a little bit bearish. So can we have some bearishness? Can we come and revisit this very nice zone right there? Well, let's see. Weekly time frame, bearish engulfing candle, filling it very nicely and hasn't created a lower low yet, while NZD/USD is just plummeting to the downside, right? So this one should follow up eventually. But similarly to the Aussies, I think of AJ, we have this kind of range. We had a massive expansion to the upside, which could be again a whack-off schematic. And then we just committed to the downside. And right now we are kind of building up this little consolidation, which again, the question is, are we going to flush from here, continue following the trend, or are we going to initiate a bigger pullback, create a lower high, and then continue lower? And then if I drop to the hourly time frame, it is a little bit tricky, because we had this very nice push to the upside that kind of broke structure. right? But we can see right now the market is just holding from the zone, but it's not holding in a good way, right? If it was about to make a new higher high, it should have already, because we spend a lot of time in this one, and I just think it's right now building up flat lows for them to get taken out, right? We can see it actually revisited this zone with a massive bullish engulf, then it massively flushed to the downside. So I am more bearish on this one. So if we actually start, because we're on the forward right now, if we start again with a little pullback to the upside, I will be interested for shorts. And again, yeah, it's all the same, guys, for all pairs. I think it's just the same setup that I'm repeating. If we have a push into the highs, then look for shorts lower high, and if we have a continuation lower, then look for a pullback lower high, and then just keep following the flow, right? That's it, as simple as that. So all of the pairs are requiring some time, because right now again we have this overall range, which is not very nice. So if you are in a trade from right there, then congratulations. I think it was somebody that mentioned the short on NJ, definitely playing out good if you enter from right there. So make sure to hold until this low, because probably I think this low is the first thing that is going to get taken on Monday or Tuesday. The question is, are we first going to have a pullback, right? So those are the NZDs. Let's actually have a look at UJ to actually see how the JPYs are going to play out. Look at that monster, right? Two massive monthly engulfing candles. So what can we expect, right? It's been a couple of weeks, actually a couple of months already, that the market is just massively pushing into the highs, and there is nothing too much to do. We got a little bit of a nice pullbacks from here to there, but the majority of the times it's just pumping without a stop, right? Monthly time frame, we're currently making these highs, but actually somebody suggested that I go to FXCM, I think. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So pretty much, yeah, the next high that we can be targeting is this high, which is 135. And currently, I would love for this guy to react at least, man, to give us a little bit of shorts, right? Because we're tapping into this very major high from 2002. Wow. All right. So we have a massive monthly candle, and this candle is already starting to print, and it's already looking bullish, right? So this is just unreal. But I do think everything is actually supporting this one to go higher. Big interest rate differentiation, and of course, also I think Bank of Japan said that they're gonna keep their rate as it is, right? So pretty much this tells us, well, this one is continuing going higher, right? We have 8 consecutive weeks of bullishness, right? So at any point we can start expecting a bearish one, but until we get it, we do not know when, right? So it's very long to try to short this guy, because what we have is a push, pullback, higher high. So currently our daily range is this. We already have a 50% pullback, so this one is already headed towards making a new higher high, right? So I would say that this pair is bullish. We have the bearish bullish formation right there, a massive sharp spike into the downside, followed by a very nice push into the highs immediately. The 4 hourly is already changing to the upside, right? And we have pretty much like all the pairs, we have this overall consolidation, which is not good. So again, what I would love to see is a little bit of a bearish start of the week. So I would love to see a little bit of bearishness kicking, higher low formation, and then of course attacking the high, right? Bearishness is gonna happen if we make a lower low, right? If we start trending down, because we have this, for example, this is not really a trend down. Look at the push, look at the correction, right? So if you just understand like push, correction, push, you don't want to short this one, right? You really want to see clear, and we just have this, right? There is another one, push, correction, I expect another push, right? So until we get like a clear, like maybe push, correction, until you start changing like this clearly to the downside, we are long on this pair, right? So let's see, I do not see a clear zone on this one, especially on this time frame. It could look something like this. I see this wick sell, then a big buy, so I would look for something like this around 129.50 for a nice revisit for a potential long. But of course, if we start pumping into the highs, then it's another story. Then again, just continue following it until you're wrong, right? So here's the JPY, extremely bullish. Let's see how it's gonna play out. I hope for a pullback, but of course, let's wait for Monday, wait for some price to play, because right now, again, it's not the best. You can start forcing some sort of longs from right there, but it's not the best, and it's not a proper pricing, right? As for shorts, I really don't think we're gonna short from right there, right? It is possible for us to give a reaction to push to the downside, but we can see that it's already reacting. So I have a feeling that actually we might even continue to push to the highs from here. because we have a couple of wicks. So if you're feeling risky on Monday, then on any little pullback towards these wicks, right, you can of course even start looking for longs, but I suggest that you wait for a little bit of price to print and then strike it with more confidence. Let's have a look at the pound, which is on a rampage to the downside as well. So we also had very major news releases on Wednesday, I think, this week. And pretty much as expected, Bank of England raised their rates by 25 basis points. But the speech that Bailey gave was pretty dovish, which means that it's pretty bearish, right? He mentioned some bad things about the economy struggling, potential recession, I think, and some bad stuff. And this one really shook the market down. Pretty much the whole move of this month is already going bearish. And this happened just on just happened on this day, right? 5th of May, which I think was actually Thursday that we had this move, or not. No, I think we had the news, then we had this fake bullish move, and then we can see the overall response. So pretty much the pound is also very bearish, right? Nothing can compare with the dollar right now. This is a beast. So we have an overall supply right there that held, so which means that if this low failed to make a new high, then of course our next objective could be this one, which is a pretty nasty big wick right there, 1.14. And yeah, we have quite a few pips to the downside towards this one. So a more first realistic target could be 1.20, where we can potentially target. Of course, we can start expecting some sort of a response from levels like this, right? So we can have a pullback, because also we can see that this pair has been trending down very massively, even parabolic, for 3 weeks already, right? But I do think we can just continue going on like this. So again, keep shorting until you're wrong. This week is already quite bearish, right? Unlike EU, we had like a very kind of ranging day. This one is already going down, which just suggests that the dollar is the strongest across the board. So everything should eventually follow up to the downside, right? Which is why I think also EU should potentially plummet as well. So what this one did is it chopped around like since 29th of April, bullish, bearish, indecision. There is our liquidity gap, right? Which tricked people into buying. Potentially a lot of people start thinking, oh, we're heading higher, right? And then just the next day it slaps, right? So pretty much going on to the hourly, yeah, there are a lot of opportunities to be taken within the lower time frames right there. There is a liquidity gap, and then all of a sudden then we just plummeted to the downside. We had a very little reaction because a lot of people then started looking for longs. We had a reaction, but then we also had the little liquidity gap of the reaction, which is what GU loves to do. And then we just plummeted, right? And we're also tapping inside this zone right there. So it looks good for a potential pullback. But once again, as I said, across all the currency pairs that we just covered, right now it's after NFP, and all of them are just ranging right now. So if I go to the hourly, all the pairs are looking like this, a little range, which means that we do not get a nice setup immediately for the week. So what does that mean is that you gotta be a little bit patient, right? Personally, I really like this zone right there. So are we gonna reach that high? I don't know, right? But we have a lot of empty space right there to fill potentially. So I would expect for the market to start retracing a little bit higher, maybe then to form a lower high, and then to start shifting, and then to take a short, right? Of course, as I said, with the majority of the pairs, like there are two outcomes that we can expect. The first one is, of course, to have a pullback, right? I would expect the pullback at least to this low, right? There, at least to retest that broken structure, right? The second scenario will be an immediate continuation to the downside, in which case we have to just draw a new range, right? Because then the hourly is going to create a new push to the downside. So then we just take that push. Oops. Where is the FIP? Take the push, pull back, and then trade a lower low, right? So this is how I look into it. It's pretty simple. The pound is absolutely bearish as well. We're expecting 21 to 20 to 1.2050 to be revisited. But first of all, I would expect some sort of a pullback, right? Or of course, if we just continue trending lower, then just keep following the flow, right? But the main thing is that the pound is bearish. Looking at GJ also, we are currently reacting from something on the left. On the monthly, we're already starting to print a little bit bearish. So this one might initiate a monthly pullback towards the downside, and we kind of almost are towards the 50%. And I do think we were reacting from a weekly zone on this one that I drew some time ago. It's this guy right there. So let me draw it. Is it this guy? Well, this one was not retested. Maybe I took it like a bigger range. I'm really not sure, but it doesn't matter that much because we're going to just zoom in and see what is happening right now. So we have rejection, 1 week of bearishness, which was encountered with a lot of bullishness, and right now we have an inside bar. So again, just because this is a JPY pair, it immediately makes it tricky. Why? Because of UJ, right? So UJ is still rampaging to the upside, and until it does this, the JPY pairs are going to be a little bit tricky, right? We had this massive run to the downside, but again, this run just kind of almost tapped towards 50% and it revisited this zone right there. We had a reaction from this zone, but if this zone fails to put up a new high, then it probably becomes liquidity and it's going to get attacked, which is also the inside bar low. So framing also a bearish pound overall. I do think GJ can continue going to the downside as well. It's overall right now in a massive selling pressure. If we just very simply compare this move to the upside with this move to the downside, all right, it took the market quite some time. It took the market 14 bars and 20 days to reach the high. And then since here, it took the market 3 bars to reach the low, let's say 4 or 5, right? So the difference in momentum is quite big. So I'm kind of suggesting probably shorts, right? Same story right there. We had this run into the highs that looked like a change of structure right there. But then we chop. Very nice push to the downside. Currently, we are about to encounter some sort of a zone like this. And we already reacted, broke through. So again, it's a little bit boring this week actually, because all we have right now is just ranges. So again, guys, what I expect, we have a pretty nice zone to be looking from right here. So if we have a pullback towards this zone, right, maybe a little bit of a pullback right there, lower high, then I would expect this, right? So this is my perfect breakdown on GJ, and of course if we have a continuation lower pullback, lower high, then we can expect downside. So that's GJ. And yeah, quick look at euro pound, an overall bullishness, which against this is definitely seen because we see euro USD is really kind of failing to break lower while GU is just plummeting, right? And we can already see this one in price. Euro GBP is starting to massively rampage into the highs, creating a new higher high, right? So we can, of course, right now start expecting this one to react from there. But we're right now also building up demand and bullish structure. So let's see how this one is going to go, right? This one is potentially to be followed if you're trading both pound and euro, right? So definitely right now the pound is weaker than the euro. So shorting the pound dollar or pound yen, it's much better than shorting the euro, right? So this is how I'm going to wrap up the GBPs. Again, I like all the currencies that we covered. They are a little bit boring right now in terms of the closes of Thursday and Friday. So they all need a little bit of time. Let's see if we get some pullbacks and of course, follow the flow. All right, let's look at gold. Again, fundamentally, as we have explored in a couple of weekly outlooks already, it makes sense for gold to go a little bit lower. Because again, the rate on the dollar is increasing, more money is flowing towards the dollar, and we have already seen a little bit of a rejection. Like March was a rejection, actually April closed pretty bearish, and right now we're starting to hit a little bit lower, but we still have this kind of push and a pullback scenario in which right now we are retesting this zone. So again, we can kind of expect a little bit of bullishness, but I really don't think so, right? So dropping onto the weekly time frame, it's a little bit tough to actually analyze gold right now because we're still kind of stuck in this overall triangle, right? There is no trend. We were stuck in this sort of region right there, which was pretty tough to trade. Of course, I'm sure that there are a lot of opportunities intraday, right? But the hard time frame is a little bit tough to analyze according to me. So right now, again, just framing this bearish bias, but of course, knowing what the hard time frames are still doing, which are slightly bit more bullish, right? Since we introduced this momentum, we pull back a little bit, and right now we can just be grabbing liquidity towards 1860. I think some of you mentioned this level. So then we can start heading higher, but I really don't think so. I think we might enter into another consolidation, right? We just shook out first, consolidation, shook out second. Maybe we're going to enter into another consolidation, which is not going to be very nice. Right, so there is this overall weekly zone right there, and man, gold is hard to look at. I really don't like gold, but we had this zone right there. The market reacted again, came in again, reacted again, but it failed to put up a new high, and then since then we reversed, right? So demand has failed, and right now who is in control? Well, bears or supply or sellers, whatever you like to say. And currently what I see also is that we are building up some bearish pricing. Right, we can see that we had this major one, but the market is not providing a lot of pullbacks. We had a high, lower low, lower high right there. So currently I would expect that gold takes out 1850 as well. And then from there, I will be curious to see how it's gonna react within this demand, right? Which is pretty much this last sell-off before we had a very big buy, right? So this whole region is a pretty interesting region for buys, right? But again, just thinking of it fundamentally, I am not pretty sure if we're gonna get a lot of buys, right? I think we might enter right there, maybe give a little bit, then consolidate a little bit, and then from there, I just don't know, right? So dropping onto the FOH, we can see that we had a little bit of buy off, then we had a sell off, which pretty much resembles the DXY, right? What we have exactly on the DXY. But yeah, so can we have another run into the lows? This is what I'm looking for. Of course, on the 4-hourly, we have a little bit of a shift happening right now, but in order for me to call this market bullish, I would need to see this supply fail, right? So what I would need to see is from here for us to make a clear higher high, and then potentially I might trade along from right there, but not right now, right? So give it some time. I do think shorts are a little bit highly probable, especially for attacking 1850, right? Which kind of tapped 1850.50. I would like to take also the round number to the downside. So let's see. Always appreciating your feedback on gold. So let me know in the comments, do you think we're going lower, or do you think we're going to reverse higher? I personally think we're going lower. So let's see. All right, let's examine some indices which are very interesting right now. And again, a lot is being spoken on news, on different analysts as well. And we have a lot of calls for crashes, for recessions as well, that something really bad is going to happen. So I pretty much also think like it, because we have been seeing it in price as well. We see inflation is very high. We see the rates are hiking. So we might get a little bit of a shake off. So I am kind of bearish. Right, I'm kind of bearish on stocks and on indices, or at least I think we might enter into a period like this, right? Where we have like a little bit of a consolidation, a little sell-off, then buy, then another consolidation, something like this as well, which pretty much you can see on average, it takes like, yeah, pretty much, man, this is 2 years, right? This is 2 years, this is also around 2 years. So are we gonna enter into one of those? I don't know, right? So far, we have been in this situation for almost a year when we did not move too much, right? And of course, following with this very massive move, I do think we have some room for a correction also in terms of technicals. And yeah, so we can see that the weekly time frame is currently starting to turn pretty bearish. We have this high being taken, then we have this low being taken. And most importantly, right now, supply has been holding in terms of technicals as well. And of course, stocks are also falling. So just looking at how bearish it is, well, I am just gonna call sellers on this one, being extremely realistic. Next target for me on US30 and across the other ones is gonna look like this, right? Which is a pretty nice demand. And of course, the next one, we're just gonna draw them like that and expect further drops. Of course, right there we have a 15%. So we had a roughly around 10 to 12% drop. And usually there is a very high chance that this one is gonna become a 15. And then there is like a 35 chance that a 15% drop might become 20, right? So I do think we're heading lower. First target is going to be this low, right? So if we just go to the daily, my voice is disappearing already. We have, yeah, so we have a little bit trickiness, right? There we have push, down, push up, down, up, down. It's just chopping around, building up some liquidity, also taking out liquidity, right? We can see that we took out this high kind of equal, but we took out these one right there. And yeah, we had a little bit of a runoff right there again. I got a little bit tricked on that night of the interest rate decision, because I've been looking to buy some stocks, right? And I was just thinking to get a better price. But then as I saw like the indices started to rampage into the highs, I'm like, man, I'm gonna miss out. So I actually bought some, right? Not a lot, but I bought some, and was just really surprised on the next day that they were already running into drawdown. So it was quite a nice experience to see that those things again, buying the rumor, selling the news later, they really nicely work, because we just had a nice liquidity grab into the highs, trick people into buying, and I was also tricked. And right now we have a very nice retracement lower. So I do think just looking at the liquidity targets, then of course these two lows are the first ones to be achieved. And again, even indices, similar to all the instruments that we have right now, they are just in a range. Pre-NFP, no, post-NFP, sorry. So we have to wait for something to happen. We either gonna start with a pullback, right, lower high, or we're just gonna crush to the downside and then from then follow the trend, right? So also across the indices, make sure to give them some time. Nasdaq is the bearish of them all, right? So we're potentially about to pull back towards this zone, which is what I'm going to be looking for. Weekly time frame, extremely bearish in control. And also we already have a new lower low forming on this guy. Right there, you can see it's already lower low, while US 30 is currently traveling towards it. And I do think also S&P, okay, S&P also made a new lower low, just actually this week. So we are about to encounter a couple of demand levels right there. So we can expect a little bit of a withdrawal, but this index is far away from being bullish because we also have a lot of tech companies that are just plummeting to the downside. So really don't think so we're going to see longs anytime soon, right? So last lower high that was right there, overall health. Right now we have a brand new lower low. So what we have to wait for is for potential pullback, right? And again, once again, we have overall choppy post NFP price action. So I will be looking to see if we get any pullback towards the highs, lower high, and then to short, or are we just going to continue lower? And then of course, just follow up with the momentum, right? And pretty much the same, the indices look pretty much the same. S&P, I'm looking towards 4K. This would be my first buying area. I bought some, as I told you, I also bought some on Friday, right? A little bit of discount somewhere right there. But I'm definitely looking for 40K, right there, 40K. This is 4K, not 40. Towards a pullback towards this area, because again, we had that little... First, we had a 10% pullback, then this 10% pullback became 15, but then we failed to push higher, so this one is going to become 20, right? So I'm looking for areas to buy around 38 towards 4K will be potentially be an investing area, let's say, for me. But right now, again, in terms of technicals, we are definitely seeing sellers. This one got us a little bit tricked because it actually took out these highs, so I thought we might have a little bit of chance to potentially respond from levels like this. This is why I bought into this area, but right now I just see that it's going lower, so that's fine. We're just dollar cost averaging actually at a lower price than the all-time high, so that is actually pretty good, right? So looking at it, we're currently responding from this zone. I do think this one is the next liquidity target to be taken, and then as we start entering into the 4K region, I'm gonna start buying as well and stacking up, right? So yeah, nothing too much to say. Again, same price action right there, just chopping around. We have this liquidity target. We also have this one. So let's see if we're going to start with a pullback, lower high, and flush lower, or are we just going to first plummet to the downside? So those are the indices, pretty simple. And also a massive drop, man. This is painful on the Bitcoin. So yeah, I do think we're definitely gonna revisit these lows right there. I am gonna call 31K as well, just because looking at how it's failing to go higher, it's just shouting that I can't go higher, bro, short me, right? These sort of levels right there are gonna get retested. So this is the demand that we've been stuck into. We tapped inside, we tried to push, but we failed, right? So this one is still valid because this is pretty much the base, right? This is pretty much the base. And if I take out the horizontal ray, it was a very nice round number of 2880. So as long as we remain above this one, I am kind of bullish, right? And if we just break below this one, then I don't know what's gonna happen, right? This is something else to think. But right now we have further sellers on Bitcoin, just supply is in control. We can see on the daily, it's just pulling back towards supply, respecting it, lower highs. So hopefully guys, you are shorting it. I'm not trading Bitcoin. I am invested in it, but it's not looking too good, right? Of course, I'm in profits, but it's not nice because I bought it somewhere recently. Yeah, I think it was right there. It was reached right there, and right now we're back into it. So I do think this low is being taken right there, which is 34. I do think this one is going to get taken, and then as we start reaching towards this zones right there, 32, 31, 30, that one could be a nice buying area where you actually get real good value. Because if we then break below these zones, then yeah, this one might go to hell, right? But yeah, currently pretty bearish. Look at that beautiful buy right there, and then a massive sell-off. So that is a good buying opportunity. So waiting for it to pull back again, lower high formation. Oops, we can even drop a fib on this one, wait for 50%, and then just short it, right? Bitcoin is really looking bearish. Ethereum is a little bit stronger, right? We can see on the monthly time frame, we also had quite the bearish candle, which again suggests short me. We have the same area right there, right? This one has a couple of other areas on the left. We can see that it's been throwing wicks right there this week. Then this one created the higher low, and since then we expanded. But yeah, the market actually showed us a little bit of a weekly shift right there. So we're still revisiting this kind of zone right there. But just also looking at Bitcoin and looking at the overall sentiment of crypto, which is bearish, I do think Ethereum might revisit 22 to 2K, which again is going to be a great value for buying, right? So right now, absolutely bearish, following the flow, 4-hourly flow, daily flow, just follow it. It's to the downside. Drop your fib again, right? Wait for a nice pullback and then just short this guy. I think this one could be a nice retest structure to short. So yes, again, slightly bit disappointed from this weekly outlook because we do not have a lot of setups just on Monday to like look for really for something to happen, because again, post NFP, we overall have ranges. So there is nothing too much to look at. But again, give it some time on Monday to play out, and then we continue striking. A brand new month is ahead of us. NFP is over, interest rates are over. So what we have to do right now is focus and follow the momentum, right? So hopefully you enjoyed the weekly outlook. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe, and also leave a comment about what your thoughts are across all the pairs, the indices, the cryptos, gold, whatever you're trading. I always love hearing from you to exchange some knowledge and value. And stay tuned for my Tuesday outlook, which I right now publish on YouTube. So make sure you turn your notifications on, and see you on Tuesday.